Alright, okay. Hey guys. Um, so recently I watched my good internet friend Ophelia do a Thinkers on Languages tag video. Because I'm so original, I decided I would um, steal that idea and do it myself again because I'm so original. Um, Obviously if I'm looking up this way it's because I've got them all up on the screen over here because ironically I don't have a great memory. Yeah. Another thing is, so you can probably tell, it's night, my parents are downstairs, don't want to wake them up if they're asleep. If not, I don't want to annoy them, you know. I like being alive, so you know. What do you consider to be your native language? Well, English. What was my first language learning experience? That would have been French in school, as a wee lad. You know, probably a pretty standard kind of, you know, primary school French experience. So, you know, things like, you know, basically learning how to say bonjour and, you know, merci and au revoir, and like, that was it for like 3 years. What languages have you studied and why did you start them? It's the main two languages I've studied have been French and Russian. Studied French because that was the language you did at primary school, and then I started Russian a few years ago again because of school. When I started my current school, I had to pick a second language to choose, not to choose, like to study, and I chose Russian. Why did I start Russian? I mean, I just thought it seemed really cool, and I was like, yeah, I want to be able to speak some Russian. That sounds cool. So I chose it, and I haven't really looked back since. Oh, I studied Latin for a few years. Again, I dropped that. I'm not sounding like a very good linguist, am I? No, so, I mean, that was interesting. I seem to gather I wasn't actually that bad at Latin, but I wasn't a massive fan. I did like the history part of it. What other languages? There's a whole splattering of languages on like Duolingo, which I've like done like 2 basic levels in and then not carried on. So I think there's like Irish, like German, Spanish, Portuguese, like I don't know, there's probably like thousands, there's probably like all the languages in Duolingo, which I've tried and not continued with. But languages I've actually got to a good stage with, like French and Russian, and I don't really study French anymore. You know, how does your personality affect how you learn languages? I don't know, to be honest. I mean, my language learning experiences are mainly like have mainly all been in classes, so things like my personality haven't really affected it that much. Like, in terms of me getting all the resources and different things I find, as I said, it's all been, well, it's mainly been to kind of confined to school and the way schools teach languages, which I don't think is necessarily the best way, because it's very much like you've got to pass the exams, and you know, you've got to jump through certain hoops. That's what you're studying to do, rather than actually studying the language for the language. On reflection, I realise I haven't actually answered to this. My priorities in language learning are probably something like speaking first, and then like reading and writing. But I have to say that my listening is possibly the worst. I'd probably focus on that at least. But yeah, definitely kind of speaking and trying to get rid of an accent is up there first. Do you prefer learning languages in a class or individually? Well, I think there's pros and cons to both sides. Like, learning a language individually it's pretty good because you kind of get, you know, it's more focused on your specific needs. And yeah, So in that sense, I think you'll progress a language much more in one-on-one, kind of individually. But I don't think that's to say that learning languages in a class is necessarily bad. Obviously, people are different, and so people will make different mistakes. And people also think people also think differently and try to say different things. And so problems you might not really come up across, someone else might. And if they come up against that problem, then you can kind of learn what to, kind of how it should be phrased in case you want to ever use that. Because in my opinion, with language, it's only a matter of time before you'll have to use that one thing which someone else tried to do. So I think that classes are good because you can learn from those, and also at the beginning when you're learning a language, it's nice to be in class because you can kind of hide if you're really not feeling that confident at all. Whereas in a one-on-one, it can be more intimidating, I think. Trying to have a healthy balance of the two is useful. Maybe like being in a small class, or maybe being in a bigger class and having, and also studying individually, one-on-one, for example. That's what I did with French for a couple of years, and that was useful. I did more on the stuff that I learnt and used it more. And, so everything was more kind of cemented. What are your favourite language learning materials? I'm feeling like a lot of these questions I can't really answer that well. As I said, my main language learning experiences have been through classes at school. So it's kind of whatever they've offered. Duolingo obviously pops into mind. The thing about Duolingo though is that a lot of it is very vocab based, which is fine. But for example, in the Russian course, they teach you things like plate and fork and spoon, and that's great. But you learn that kind of instead of learning more important things like, I work in a university, or something actually useful. Be Fluent in Russian did a whole video on Duolingo, and he said that Duolingo is good to kind of supplement your language learning. I totally agree, to be honest. I think Duolingo is great for a free resource, but I don't think it's really that great for a starting point. I haven't really tried Babbel, though I've heard great things about it. You know how you can get those dictionaries and they have little grammar sections in the middle, or like little phrases? I think those are always really helpful for beginners, because it often explains very basic vocab, kind of enough to manipulate certain words to get very basic sentences, or because there's phrases you can learn them. I think those are always really useful to have. How much time do you spend actively learning per day or week? Well, during a normal school week, I have around three class lessons of Russian. Those are 40 minutes each. So that's kind of 2 hours a week in lessons, plus a couple of homework slots. So that's around another 40 minutes. It's generally only one piece of homework a week. And then I have a couple of speaking lessons as well, which is like another 40 minutes. I mean, this goes a lot into what you class as actively studying. So because I have such an amazing life, I'll go onto YouTube and watch I'll watch Russian language channels talking about Russian, and I'll link a few in the description if you're interested. So I'll watch a few of those a week, but I don't actively make notes generally. you know, I'll occasionally attempt to watch a video in Russian. Is that active studying? You know, in which case I do a little bit. I talk to myself a lot in Russian. Again, because, you know, because I'm totally sane, of course. You know, yeah, I think it comes down to what you personally class as active studying. But I don't think I spend that much time studying, especially not at the moment, because I've got other, you know, I've got, 9 other subjects which I need to focus on for GCSEs, which are pretty important. What are your short-term and long-term language learning goals? Well, I want to get better at Russian. You know, I mean, to fluency is quite cliche, but, you know, kind of a C1 level, or is it C2? I always get confused which way round it goes. C1 level-ish, or at least very, very high B2 in Russian. I'm going to start Italian next year at school, so I'd like to get to a similar level on that. I don't know what level I am in French. I haven't studied it for a couple of years now. Maybe I might want to go back to that in the long term. And I quite like the idea of studying something like Urdu or like a Germanic language, maybe like Danish or something. I'm not too sure, but that's my kind of long-term goals. In the short term, I've got a couple of trips abroad in the summer. So I'm going to Spain and I'm going to Slovenia in this summer. And so I'd quite like to learn some basic Spanish and some basic Slovene or Slovenian. I'm not actually 100% sure which one is actually the name of the language and which one is just an adjective. I think Slovene's the name of the language. Actually, my hope with Slovene is that I will be able to pick it up relatively quickly because I've got an understanding of how Russian grammar works, and I don't think Slovene grammar is ridiculously foreign to that, apart from jewels. I've heard that jewels are a pain, massive pain in the arse. So that will be fun. But yeah, I might try to learn some Portuguese. The only problem is that I would want to learn Portuguese from European Portuguese, but loads, like the vast majority of resources out there are aimed at Brazilian Portuguese. As far as I'm aware, is basically the same as the difference between British English versus American English. So it's basically just pronunciation, a few words here and there. But I'd at least to begin with, I'd want to stay on the European Portuguese kind of resources and play it safe until I can kind of tell the difference between Brazilian and European Portuguese. And maybe some Danish? I don't know. As I said, I've got GCSE at the moment. I'm just kind of, I know I've said this like 1,500 times already. I'm just kind of focusing on those at the moment, and I'll think more about my language learning goals kind of after I've finished that. So, what is your favourite language? Pass. What is the next language you want to learn? To a good level. Probably. Well, I think I'd have to put Italian down because I know that's definitely going to happen. Like almost definitely going to happen. But as I've said, I want to learn some basic Spanish and Slovene. I seem to love loads of S's, don't I? Spanish, Slovene. What advice can I give to new language learners? Don't get demoralised, I think. That's the I think that's the main one. When starting a language, especially, you'll make a lot of mistakes, and it can sometimes feel really demoralizing because you're like, I've studied this for so long, well, it'll feel like a long time. It could be like 2 days or something, but you'll feel you can be really demoralized because it's like, hang on, why am I getting this wrong? And I think especially when studying it on your own, it's sometimes hard to get explanations for why something is wrong. I think don't get demoralized. I'm not going to say you just need to push through it, because I think that can give the wrong idea. But it's important, in my opinion, that if you are in a situation where you're feeling really demoralized, I think it's important just to take a break. Sleep on it that next day. You don't want to push it. You don't want to push yourself, because if you do get demoralized and you just work through it, you could get into a real risk of having a bad relationship with that language and really growing to dislike it later on, which is a shame. Definitely don't just push through it. I think that's possibly the worst thing for your mental health you could do, or your relationship with that language. But sleep on it and come to it the next day, and just try not to get frustrated as well. Obviously this all links into try and find, either someone who's at a higher level of the language than you, or a native speaker of that language, and try and get them to explain why something's wrong. For example, with Russian, one of the most common mistakes I think that learners can make is forgetting the accusative case, which is for objects of a sentence. And you can, if you look at it, you can probably see why. Like, it only affects one ending, which is feminine singular words, and it's just so easy to forget. I forget it all the time, and I know plenty of other people who do. It's not a unique thing, but sometimes if you were learning Russian, you might not realise that that's what you have to do. And if you keep on making that mistake and you don't get it, and you don't realise why that's wrong, that could, well, first of all, it's not very helpful for your language learning, because you just won't use it, and it'll sound really weird in speech, and it's harder to correct later on. But if you're on Duolingo or something, for example, and it doesn't really explain it to you properly, and you keep on making the same mistake, that's going to get really annoying, because you're going to be like, why doesn't this work? So basically, to summarise, if you're getting frustrated, just take a break and sleep on it. Try not to get frustrated, and try to get either someone who's at a higher level of the language than you, or a native speaker of that language, of your target language, to try and explain mistakes to you, because it's sometimes just the most helpful thing. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.